Well, good day, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? We are at Historic Auto Attractions in Roscoe, Illinois. And this place, you kind of have to set aside your whole day. We've made several videos from here, and today we're going to show you a lot of really amazing stuff related to President Kennedy, the assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald, all kinds of stuff like that today. Hope you enjoy it. Daze with Jordan the Lion and you all. It begins right now. All right, today I promised something interesting, and this is all Kennedy assassination stuff. This is John F. Kennedy's 1962 Lincoln. This he used to visit the troops in Fort Stewart, Georgia in November of 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they do have photos of him making that appearance right there. Another convertible, so he would have been sitting back here.
And the distinctive 1957 Lincoln Premier wheel covers replaced the original Continental Mark II style.
Very interesting car. Nice. Now look right behind us. The 1962 checkered marathon Dallas taxi cab known as the Getaway car. Lee Harvey Oswald's Getaway car. Of course, he's accused of being the lone gunman, even though many people believe there were more. They have a map of his escape route over here, how he would have done it. It started up here, where he presumably took the president's life, and then went to the boarding house that my friend Breck has done a very good video on. He did this whole route, actually. And then that, where it says he leaves the taxi, this is the taxi. William Whaley was the cab driver that day. And that's him right there. And then they have, it's kind of weird, they have some movie posters, and the reason they have those is because it says the theater where Lee Harvey Oswald was captured right there had those posters on the outside of the theater. So it's kind of a neat little touch. But that is the Getaway taxi cab. It's amazing that they get this kind of stuff. Said only minutes after Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated President Kennedy from the 6th floor of the book depository building, he casually walked out the front door, hailed down this taxi cab serial number 36, and had the driver William Wayne Whaley drive him back to his rooming house. Whaley tried to make conversation with Oswald. Quote, "What the hell do you think happened out there?" he recalled asking Oswald as an opener. Oswald didn't answer him back. He asked to be dropped off 2 blocks past his rooming house. The cab fare was 95 cents. Oswald gave him $1 and said, "Keep the change." Man, what a piece of history, right? Now they have Jackie Kennedy's Life magazine cover here. And they have the pearls that she's wearing in that photo on display. And even that was signed, that magazine. So in this case, it says it's a red rose from the bouquet given to Jackie Kennedy at Dallas Love Field on November 22nd, 1963 from the mayor of Dallas. And if you have been watching me recently, I just went and gave a tour inside the plane that carried President Kennedy's body back to Washington in, and also where Johnson was sworn in. So there's that rose. And there's a photo of her receiving them, those roses. Now over here, look at the cars. They have a whole selection of cars, and it says 1956 Cadillac Secret Service limousine, known as the Queen Mary II. This is the actual limo that was directly behind President Kennedy's presidential limo at 12:30 p.m. on November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas when he was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald from the book depository. So they would have been trout. Look at that. Look at that. You can see where they hid their guns and everything, and they've got them ready. That's the actual car. So there's a photo of everything happening right there that day. So they have the car that followed. Down below, they actually have what the whole layout of where the car was traveling to, what that looked like, and then photos that were taken, probably Zapruder film screenshots. So we have the setup. I love the way they displayed this. They have the Secret Service car, and then I mentioned in another video that the Henry Ford Museum has the actual assassination car. They have a recreation of it over here. This says 1961 Lincoln Kennedy assassination limousine, codename X100, built from the original blueprints from Hess and Eisenhart, which were used in Dallas for all the research of the assassination. This tribute limo, see, they do call it a tribute. People that have seen some of the videos go, I don't think this stuff could be real. How could they get all this stuff? They got it. Says this tribute limo was featured in 11 documentaries about Kennedy. This is the only limo in the world built to exact specs. The original is at the Henry Ford Museum in Deerfield, Michigan, but now has a hard top, painted black, and does not resemble the original limo that Kennedy was assassinated in. Which is why when people watch that video and they say, this doesn't look like the car at all, or they say, you know, the car was completely disassembled afterward, they're absolutely right, it was. So it does look different in the museum, but they have the one. But this is the way it should have looked. It was blue, and there's President Kennedy. I mean, geez. Isn't this sobering? Now take a look at this. This is the ambulance that transported Lee Harvey Oswald to Parkland Hospital on November 24th, 1963. It says 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas, read a dispatch by U.S. news agency. CBS television made the then radical decision to interrupt TV programming to inform the Americans of the assassination. It was the nation's television newsman Walter Cronkite who broke the news. Somber Cronkite in shirt sleeves removed his glasses and announced that the dashing young president was dead. And there's a photo of him doing that. But man, look at that. And then this is a photo of the man, Officer Tippit, that was allegedly killed by Oswald after he apparently shot Kennedy. And then here they have, in this case, this is crazy. Over here in this case, they have Lee Harvey Oswald's gray sweater. They have the rifle, similar to what he used, and the actual 1963 Klein Sporting Good catalog that he ordered the gun from. Here's all the documentation for this ambulance. So that's where the driver, of course, would have been driving, and look in the back. There's a gurney. We can actually see into it as well.
It is November 24th, 1960.
Man, that is crazy, isn't it?
21 a.m. At the same time, the world mourns the loss of Camelot. All eyes are focused on the jail hallway in Dallas.
Look at that, man. There he is.
Catch a rare glimpse of the man who is.
And then in here they have a reenactment of Jack Ruby shooting Lee Harvey Oswald. That famous photo behind it.
An ambulance races down the jail ramp to pick up the victim.
And then look at this. The book depository window and the view of the president's limo from here. It says, this Oswald window was removed as evidence and is now kept by the FBI. The window on display was located next to that window. It was near this window that FBI agents found other evidence left behind by Oswald. The green painted wood frame with 4 window panels measuring 33 by 40 was removed from the building in 1986. So they're talking about that right there. All that green stuff right there. And then that's what his view would have been. That's crazy. So this is the exact next window that had been replaced. Here they have Jack Ruby's polygraph test results. That's crazy. Whoa. And then they have, what is this? It says Jack Ruby's bullets. Now here they have a photo of where the shots would have been taken from, so our windows would have been right next to it. So I guess they're saying they probably took that one. And then over here, they have all kinds of stuff from the arrest. They have a chair from the theater where he was hiding out, a brick from the depository. They have Jack Ruby's jacket. Wow. His suit jacket. Then they have Officer McDonald's actual police uniform. Wow. He was the arresting officer of Lee Harvey Oswald that day. That's what he was wearing that day. Jack Ruby's shoes. Jack Ruby's hat. And it says this guide was found in Jack Ruby's pocket when he was arrested. Then they have the deposit bag that Jack Ruby used to make cash deposits from his nightclubs in Dallas. They have the gun belonging to the Dallas policeman. Right there, Captain Will Fritz, who was in charge of the investigation. And then it says this gun was commonly carried in Jack Ruby's boot as a hidden backup firearm. The original license plate from the ambulance that transported Oswald, and Jack Ruby's necktie. Man, what a collection. See what I mean? They just have an amazing Kennedy assassination collection. And over here they have Lee Harvey Oswald's wedding suit. It says he brought this along when he defected to the Soviet Union in October of 1959. And it appears in at least 3 photographs dating from that period, including one taken on his wedding day on April 30th, 1961. The suit is described in the Warren County Commission report. Oswald owned one suit of Russian make and purchase and poor fitting and of heavy fabric, which despite its unsuitability to the climates of Texas and Louisiana and its obvious discomfort, he wore it on the few occasions that required dress. So they're basically saying he only ever had one suit his whole life and that it was uncomfortable for the region, but he was too cheap to get another. And then countless Life magazines that featured the Kennedys or, you know, their life, his presidency, her life after. Just tons and tons of magazines. Now this is one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen in a museum. And this is one of those things that people on other times that I've come here have said, this is fake. There's no way that's the actual flag. It says this is the actual flag that was draped over Kennedy's casket. A lot of people have commented and said, no, it's in Massachusetts at the Kennedy Library. They're stating right here, I mean, if you have questions about that, I would say call the museum and ask for Tony. And he's the curator here. He can answer your questions about that. And then it says the White House chandelier above. 1935 Waterford Tiffany gift from Irish ambassador used in the China room. But isn't that amazing? That is the actual flag that was on top of President Kennedy's casket. That's the flag that flew over the Capitol on November 21st, 1963, the day Kennedy left for Dallas. And then over in this corner, that was Jackie's. You can see Jackie's wearing it there, and as she's coming down the stairs right there. This whole thing is the itinerary for President Kennedy's funeral. Now in this case, they have the rosary that was carried by the priest during the last rites. Carried by Father James Thompson, along with Father Huber, were the two priests present when Kennedy received his last rites before he died in the emergency room at Parkland Hospital. Final moments of Kennedy's life were spent in the hospital trauma room 1, where doctors labored in vain to save the mortally wounded president's life. The president's wife, security personnel, and the priests all witnessed his passing. The rosary beads are significant because of what they represent. Kennedy was the first Roman Catholic president. The rosary beads themselves were a point of pride for Father Thompson, who died in 1982. He carried the beads everywhere he went since that day in November 1963. And then this pamphlet was written by the request of Robert Kennedy. And this is Father Huber's cross. Here are a few of Jackie and the kids' clothes. You can see over here that John Kennedy Jr.'s brown jacket and Jackie's two-piece maternity outfit. These were Caroline's clothes right there. And John Kennedy Jr. wore this little navy suit right there. This is one of Jackie's outfits, as well as this one. And then that was what she wore to campaign in. And they have President Kennedy's suit right next to it from his days in office. And this one is actually from his days in the Senate. So here we have a camera and film, and it says original film footage of President Kennedy on the morning of his death in Texas, along with the camera that was used to take the pictures. The footage was taken by Mr. A.O. Tuning using 8mm color Kodak film and is 20 seconds in length, just hours before his death. That's the flag that flew over the nation's capital during his funeral. And they have a piece of the grassy knoll fence in here as well. This is a really neat room. Really, really neat room. I hope you guys enjoyed today's vlog. This is some amazing memorabilia. If you're ever in Roscoe, Illinois, make it a point to get here and see as much as you can. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.